I think this is working, yeah. So what I whispered was best speech I've ever heard on life, and I've heard a few. Thank you. Especially during this week, it's a big one. With so much hope. I hear it in your voice, it's in the room, it's all across the country. So let me just dash it for a minute. No, I'm not gonna dash it, but I do wanna ask you a serious question, and that is, we've been at this place a couple of times in the past, heading towards the Supreme Court with great hope for a good result, thinking of the Casey decision. What makes this moment different?
Well, first off, Marjorie, I want to thank you and SBA List for organizing this event with advancing American freedom. And as I said at the outset of my remarks, I want to thank you personally for your relentless dedication to the cause of life. You have changed the debate, and the SBA List is specifically responsible for electing women and men to state houses and the Congress across the United States who stand without apology for the right to life, and I thank you for that, from my heart.
Thank you.
I honestly, I'm actually very hopeful now. And I do believe that Roe versus Wade will be overturned, whether it's now or in the near future, because I truly do believe that the conscience of our country has awakened to the cause of life. And I've been particularly encouraged to see that among young people that I know your organization works with every day. I was at Texas A&M for a speech, and literally hundreds of students came out, and I was so inspired at their passion and their commitment to the conservative cause. But you know as well as I do that in this rising generation, support for the right to life grows literally by the day.
That's right.
And I do believe it's a result. It's certainly a result of political activism and electing men and women that make the case for life. It's certainly, I believe, and profoundly a result of crisis pregnancy centers. But I also believe that it is also coming from within families. The highest title I will ever hold is DAD, right? And
How about granddaddy?
I'm a proud father of 3 kids, all married, happily, and we just had a new grandbaby this year. And,
Congratulations.
And we love it. But I will tell you that looking at my kids' generation, there's certainly diverse views on a broad range of issues. But on life, I see kids responding in a way that I think ultimately comes from family.
Yeah.
I honestly think that in the quiet counsels between mothers and daughters, between grandmothers and granddaughters, over kitchen tables, the truth about abortion is being told. And that is, I believe, changing the culture, and it's creating the environment where we've been able to have the political success we had, elect the administration that I was proud to be a part of, and see 3 strong conservatives appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States, and a renewed conservative majority on the Supreme Court that will review the Dobbs case tomorrow.
That's right. So I share that hope, and we see that same conversation, the council over the kitchen table. We see that every day. We see it in the battleground states, which of course are significant in upcoming elections. We see it, and people who have really not talked about this issue. It's just been sort of in the air, but hasn't gotten into their hearts and minds. This moment is coming where it will be impossible to ignore. So I share that hope. I do. And I believe that 4 justices who had to agree to listen to this case, that asked the one question, are any pre-viability abortion limits constitutional? To ask that question, to set themselves up only to reaffirm Roe versus Wade, seems unlikely. But we'll see. It's just a few months away, and we'll see what the answer is. I'm interested in if our hopes are well-founded and there's either a full or partial overturn of Roe versus Wade. What do you think that means in terms of the Democratic Party? And I ask it with one couple of assumptions in mind. One, what the contrast will look like when it's not just a theoretical debate. It's going to be a conversation and legislation that actually ends in real consequences for women and children. Over time, in the short term, I would say that they're probably going to suffer some losses because they haven't come back to any point of consensus. But do you think long term, as a former Democrat, you could see the Democratic Party at least come back a little bit over time? Over a third of Democrats recently identified themselves as pro-life, which surprises people.
Well, I was a Democrat in my youth. Then I heard the voice of Ronald Reagan, and I joined the Reagan Revolution and never looked back. But I think I have no doubt that a significant number of Democrat voters in America believe in the sanctity of life. No doubt whatsoever. But the reality is that their office holders today support abortion on demand, taxpayer funding of abortion, the promotion of abortion using tax dollars around the world, and maybe most profoundly, as you've witnessed in this day of cancel culture, the Democratic Party has been busy driving out and silencing pro-life voices within their own party. And so, for my part, I mean, I hope and I pray that the Supreme Court of the United States next year will see its way clear to returning this question to the states and to the people. And that, in and of itself, will be an extraordinary victory.
Indeed.
For America. But I think I'm very proud that our party, over what has been nearly 50 years, has stood consistently and championed the cause of the right to life, and people who cherish life and want to see women and men elected who will stand for the unborn know where to go. Yeah. And that's the Republican Party. Yeah. In the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is like Roe guaranteed constant battle with no resolution, constant frustration, right. All the marching, all the frustration, theoretical battles that end up in no real consequence. That when we see the unfolding of democracy in this country, state by state by state, where consensus is formed, allowed its way in the law, there will also be, as you mentioned in your remarks, great need that already exists to attend to the needs of mother and child. Right. I know your daughter Charlotte, who's always a great topic when we're together, because I love and admire her so much, is very much involved in that work, right. And it's the work of her heart. Maybe you could describe a little bit about how you see us moving concretely, maybe a little bit about what Charlotte's doing too.
Well, thanks for mentioning my daughter. She writes for the Daily Wire.
All right, way to go.
Charlotte Pence Bond, and just like her daddy, Charlotte Pence Bond is pro-life. I'm proud of her. She's been a great champion and very, very involved in a number of youth organizations that are promoting life. But there's a part of me that really believes that this moment in history belongs more to her generation than to ours. That I'll carry the banner as long as I have breath in my lungs. I will stand for the right to life. But my hope comes so much from seeing the passion and the compassion of young people, and particularly to see the advent of these organizations, crisis pregnancy centers, and, as we also had in Indiana, state-sponsored programs that provide pregnancy services to women facing crisis pregnancies. I mean, it's been one of the, I think it's been one of the smears of the left over the last 50 years that the people that believe in the right to life care about unborn babies, but once they're born, they're on their own. And I've seen the exact opposite traveling around the country. And you mentioned there's nearly 3,000 crisis pregnancy centers in the nation. But what you reflected on, and I did as well, is in states like the one I mentioned in Texas, in Indiana, where we had a program, there's also been a concerted effort to make sure that we are there for unwed mothers who choose life, to be able to have a support, have a community, have resources, to be able to be confident that they'll be able to make their way into the world. And I think it's vitally important. If the Supreme Court of the United States overturns Roe v. Wade, it will not, as many in the left and many in the media will suggest, ban abortion in America. It will simply return the issue to the states. And I think there'll be two very important debates that take place. Number one will be in state houses around the country advancing the kind of reforms that would be enabled by the Dobbs decision, that would advance the cause of life. And number two, and in the same breath, I would expect our movement would do well to also focus on those programs, public and private, that are going to come alongside
That's right.
young women and help them choose life.
Yeah, and in fact, it's one of the most, I would say, in all the decades of doing this work, this would be one of the moments of greatest inspiration and excitement over all pro-life organizations in every state that you can name, where they will be most ambitious, say 30 states or so, ambitious in enacting laws if they have the room to do so, that the pro-life organizations, and we're working closely with them, working hard to do complete inventories of every single thing available to mother and child on the continuum of care, whether it be physical or mental health care, education, first 2 years of life, child care, knitting all of those resources together across the state and then identifying the gaps and fill them in is the work of the pro-life movement always, but is most urgent right now and is something that is a beautiful thing to see, and there'll be more of that to come. It's not political.
It is a beautiful thing to see.
It is, yeah.
I mean, when I visited the Crisis Pregnancy Center last year in Tampa, it was not the first time either I or my wife had been to a crisis pregnancy center. We're proud to stand with them in the state of Indiana, but to see the way volunteers come alongside young women and
stay with them
and offer them hope,
right?
And
friendship.
And particularly, I cherish the crisis pregnancy centers that also bring a message of faith to people. That there are, my faith believes in new beginnings and in grace, and to tell people that whatever has brought you to this day, there's a new beginning, and there's hope and there's support.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful thing to see and to watch.
And I think it will lead America in many new directions, not just specific to the abortion issue, but in many other ways of generosity. What a beautiful example. I've got one more question that is in the other territory of not so beautiful sometimes, but in politics, which is what almost every reporter wants to talk about when we speak, and that is about the effect of a potential overturn of Roe versus Wade right before midterms, say June or July, whether it's a full or partial overturn, its effect on midterms, and how do you think that's going to look? And the presidential, but most eminently the midterms.
Well, I think, as someone like you and like so many of these heroes in the room, I've labored in these vineyards for all of my adult life. And so thinking about the impact on a particular election seems small compared to the impact on the life of the nation. When I look at our country today, and you witness the breakdown of the family and the rise of violent crime in our cities and the whole range of social maladies that we face, I identify a lot with what Mother Teresa said at a national prayer breakfast during the Clinton administration, that at the very center of so much of what's happening in our nation is abortion. And I really believe that if our Supreme Court will see its way clear, that it will unleash a new era and a season of renewal in our country. But with regard to the elections, I would anticipate that if the Congress and the State House are given new leeway by the Supreme Court, post-Roe, to advance legislation for the sanctity of life, I believe that millions of Americans will rally to the cause and will stand with women and men who are willing to stand for public office and stand for life. And it will have an impact in the short term and in the long term, not just for politics, but for life.
Agree. Thank you. Well, I've just been given the hook. So it looks like we're done. But I thank you so much for that incredible speech, for communicating to the nation and to the Supreme Court about what we hope. And thank you all for coming, media and otherwise, heroes of the pro-life movement. And I'll stick around a little bit for questions, but I know you have to skedaddle, I hear.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Join me in thanking Marjorie, SBA List, and all the great heroes who are here. It's an honor to be with you all.